Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the Hump Day edition of the Michael Dukes Show, Wednesday. And we are ready to rock and roll. It is just another beautiful day in paradise, and we're ready to do our thing. A full 40 degrees here at the old Radio Ranch. This winter weather is wild, but I'm not complaining. I am not complaining about it at all. Although the wind, wow, there were some gustings going on yesterday that were rattling my fillings inside the house. Definitely a whole new ball game. Something new to get used to around here. But anyway, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the show. Christmas time. We're only 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away from Christmas today. Wow, 2 weeks away. That's and it doesn't feel like Christmas for me. And you know how I love and I long to feel that Christmas spirit, right? We've talked about that in past years, that, some years I really feel it, some years I don't. And I always really want to feel it. And this year, I don't even really have time. I don't even have time to feel it. I'm just like, okay, whatever, let's go. Let's just make it happen. For those of you who are in the know here, we're going to be taking over the radio stations here on January 1st. And so in the meanwhile, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get everything set up and put together for the new systems and everything else. We're building out a bunch of new stuff for the radio stations down here on the peninsula. And it's a lot, man. It's a lot. And meanwhile, we're still trying to unpack the house. We're still trying to unpack the stuff from the last place that we went to. So anyway, it's been an exciting 10 days here. And that's about where I'm at right now. I'm on day like 10 or 11 of actually working hard on this stuff. And it is it's an adventure. It is an adventure. It's exciting. Okay. All right. Well, what are we going to be getting into today? Well, today in hour one, it's going to be you and me, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the headlines that are going on around the state and some of the things that are happening out there, including the latest on the potential merger between Fred Meyer and Safeway and what it means for Alaska. We'll talk about that. And some others. What else did I have? The new Fish Creek Trail extension. We're going to talk a little bit about that down in up in Anchorage, and this new contract, which they just announced last night, a new contract between NSTAR and Fury Petroleum. And we'll see if that's really going to save us or not. And by us, I mean people who are in the south central area of Alaska who are dependent on natural gas. So we'll have some discussions about that as well this morning. And the phone lines are open. I went ahead and we got the phone lines up and running this morning. So if you would like to sound off on anything, we're going to go ahead and just get that done. Pick up the phone and dial 319-527-3864, 319-527-3864, and we'll see where we go from here. All right, and then in hour two, we're expecting to hear from Senate Republican Caucus leader Mike Shower. So we'll see what he has to say here this morning. So fingers crossed that all fingers crossed that it's all going on here. All right. So where should we start? Well, again, since I opened the phone lines, I do want to know, there's a couple questions that I want to ask today, and I would love to have some participation from the audience on this. We are going to talk about the proposed merger, as I just said, between Fred Meyer's and Safeway. And I want to know, as an Alaskan, do you support that, or are you against it? How do you think it affects you? How do you feel about that? Also, I want to find out that of all the things in the upcoming session that we've talked about here, and that includes the education increase, the increase to educational spending, the defined benefits, or the potential for royalty relief or some other kind of subsidy in the Cook Inlet, what is the most concerning to you? What is the most concerning to you as a citizen of those three things? And I think that's it for right now. I think that was it. Where do you, so those two questions are kind of out there right now. And I'd like to get your take on them here as we go through it. So I want to see where we go on this here. So let's get started and start talking about this merger thing. Now, I have to say that initially, I was ambivalent to the potential merger between Albertsons and Kroger, which is Fred Meyer, and Kroger's Fred Meyer, and Albertsons is Safeway, and a car Safeway, I guess, for those of you who are saying so. So I was kind of ambivalent to it. I was like, okay, well, it does happen. We know that these things go on. We saw the same thing happen when Cars was purchased by Safeway. There was a bunch of stores that were put together, and some stores were spun off. And they they lived or died. In Fairbanks, we had a Cars, used to be called Foodland. That was the name of the grocery store. There'd been a grocery store there for I don't know, 40 years, something like that. Cars had acquired it at one point, and then when Cars Safeway merged, they consolidated, and they sold off some of the other assets, including the Foodland Cars, and to another entity. And it's always hard as an independent grocers, to have independent grocers come the big boys. It's always tough. And in fact, the the store that took over the Cars Foodland in Fairbanks ended up, I think it stayed open for 3 years, 4 years. It tried to do kind of like a natural food things, like I don't know, Nature's Pantry or something. It was a nice store, but it was obviously not competitive with the Safeways or the Fred Meyers in the Fairbanks area. And so it, it ended up not making it. But again, that was a small independent. In fact, I think it was a locally run outfit. And so it's very tough. It's a very tough situation for those things. So from a practical standpoint, this idea that Carson and Fred Meyer were going to merge, and then they were going to spin off, I think it was 11 different stores across the state of Alaska, and they were going to sell them to Piggly Wiggly, CNS, which is the Piggly Wiggly. Is it Winn-Dixie? Piggly Wiggly. They were going to sell them off to CNS, and this was all part and parcel of the plan so that they weren't accused of creating more of a monopoly by spinning off some of the stores. They would be able to say they have a they would have a new opportunity there. Well, of course, it all became politicized, as it is like to do here in this day and age. Everything gets politicized eventually. And you had people like Lena Khan and some of the members of the legislature and others all of a sudden were coming out against this kind of merger. Now, the argument is, the initial argument was that it would create a broader monopoly, that Kroger would dominate the space and everything else if they went ahead and merged. Of course, one of the interesting things is that as far as the U.S. grocery market share across the country, Walmart is almost twice the size of Kroger as far as the dominance in the grocery market. So I don't know exactly what's going. And of course, the argument from Kroger and Cars was that they needed to be able to combine their stores so that they were able to compete with mega giants like Amazon, Costco, and Walmart. But a federal judge has now ruled that was not a good enough argument. U.S. District Judge Andrea Nelson of Oregon and Washington ruled in favor of the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission's decision to stop the proposed $26 billion merger. They issuing a temporary injunction, the judge said allowing the two giants to combine would reduce competition, raising the cost of food and other staples for millions of Americans. The chains rank as the nation's second and fourth largest grocers by sales, respectively. But again, Walmart still in the catbird seat. Writing her decision, she said, the court finds that both the qualitative and quantitative evidence shows that defendants engage in substantial head-to-head competition and that the proposed merger would remove that competition. As a result, the proposed merger is likely to lead to unilateral competitive effects and is presumptively unlawful. Now, I don't know if that again, if you're fighting against Walmart, then as the number one with almost a 2 times market share, I don't know why the two of the smaller members of the market joining together to combine forces to fight, to go head to head with something like Walmart wouldn't be a good thing in the long run. But the judge wasn't done. She also went on to talk about how CNS, which is the Piggly Wiggly people, she says there's an ample evidence that the divestiture of the 11 or 12 stores is not sufficient in scale to adequately compete with the merged firm, and it's structured in a way that will significantly disadvantage CNS as a competitor. They're basically saying they're getting the worst of the stores that they're trying to spin off here. CNS's history of unsuccessful grocery store ventures and its continuing dependence on defendants throughout the period also suggests that the divestiture will not adequately restore competition. The deficiencies in the divestiture scope and structure create a risk that some or all of the divested stores will lose sales or close, as has happened in past CNS acquisitions. So apparently, the CNS folks have not done a great job at once they take on stores that are spun off by mergers of other grocery chains. They've not done a great job in putting that all together, which, again, is what we've seen in the past. Again, going back to the Cars Safeway merger, we saw some of the stores that they had there that then failed in the near future within a couple of years. So, look, I think that it should be allowed to proceed, quite honestly, because, again, you've got this megalith of, Walmart, then you've got Costco, and you've got all this stuff. If Kroger Safeway if Fred Meyer Safeway wants to combine and they think they can do a better job, I'm all for it. But where it really affects it is in the smaller communities. And why does it have to go to CNS? Could it go to another grocer? We've got in this state right now, I don't know if you've heard, but Three Bears Alaska is on a growth spurt like you've never seen. They are going bananas. They've got a lot of things going on, and they are opening stores like everywhere. So why did it have to be CNS? And they've been doing well. Three Bears has been doing well. So does it have to be CNS? Could it be somebody else? Could they come back and try another deal and maybe offer them to Three Bears? I don't know. Three Bears is not shy about just coming into a community and offering it up without having to try and acquire anybody else. But there's also, like I said, some politics involved in that, and we'll talk about that here in the next segment. What are your thoughts? Do you support the merger or are you against the merger? I'm seeing kind of a mixed bag in the chat room, but we'll talk about that more. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. All right. Let's go up here. See what you guys have been saying. All right, let's go over here. That's right. I could take phone calls from listeners. Yes, I can. It's amazing. It's amazing. Brian says, are you completely done with the Anchorage stations? I'm still working with them. I'm still partnered with them and doing things and helping them out, and they help me out. And it's a family affair. We're all friends and family up there. Let's see. Sound on the program. Sound. Come on. What? Why won't my comment show? There we go. Sound. Thanks for the program. We're blessed to have you. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, that was a problem that was beyond my control yesterday. That was the broadcast software. When I backed out at one point, there was a red banner at the top of the page that said, hey, we know we're having problems with the sound right now. We'll fix it as soon as we can. And they got it fixed within the hour, so it's good. Jeannie she said, I support the merger. We went through the Albertson Safeway merger and nothing visibly changed. Yeah. I think, in this day of consolidation, I'm always a little concerned when there are fewer players, but if it helps overall in reducing the price of groceries and everything else, businesses have got to do what businesses have got to do, right? Jalen says, I'm confused about the merger. As in each state seems to be deciding. Washington shot it down on the AM news, or did they? Well, this is a combined thing. This is the Washington and Oregon. This federal judge oversees Washington and Oregon, and so they're So they're basically they're putting the federal kibosh on it for each state. Terry says no, she's not in favor of the merger. No competing, less choice. Well, okay. Remember the Circle cars in Fairbanks? Yeah, that was Foodland. That was Foodland up there. Joel says the merger is just another corporate business acquisition. The fact that government is trying to intervene is literal fascism. Do I like it? Personally, I don't care either way. Well, I'm against fascism. Let's just say that. Can I just say that it's safe to say that I'm against fascism? But yeah, I mean, I hate the fact that that it became politicized. That it became politicized. Rick says we have Three Bears. Their meat department is really good. The Three Bears meat department is very, very good. Very good. They've got some they have some really good meat there. Their sausage is amazing for like breakfast, Italian sausage, all that stuff. Don't call it Piggly Wiggly, says Brian. Call it Moosely Woosely. Which corporation is taking over? That would be Kroger would be in the catbird seat. Kroger would be the Fred Meyers would be the leader. They're the ones that are acquiring the stake in Albertson and Safeway. And so, but we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. Will they appeal it? They could appeal it. And this would be a good thing for some communities. I'll tell you right now in Homer, the Safeway here is, wow. Wow. Safeway is definitely a struggle bus down here a little bit. Let's go over here. Yeah, the judge to CNS. You are complete losers. Yeah, I mean, that's what it says. Like, here's your track record, and we think you fail. You get an F, and you get an F. You get an F. Anyway. Albertsons, apparently, I didn't see the news that they terminates the merger with Kroger. So apparently it's done. They decided not to continue to try and fight it out. There you go. Let's get back to it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. We've been talking about the merger here in the chat room. And somebody just said that there was a notice that Albertsons has terminated. Let me see if they just terminated the merger agreement. They just terminated the merger agreement, and with the decision of that judge, and now they're demanding a lot of money. What's this? Let me read this here. I'm seeing this for the first time. Albertsons has terminated the $25 billion bid to merger with Kroger on Wednesday after courts blocked the deal and sued its rival, alleging a breach of contract that led to the deal's demise. The formal termination ends a 2-year effort by the chains to combine that regulators argued would lead to higher prices for shoppers. Albertsons says it was suing due to Kroger's failure to, quote, take any and all actions, unquote, to get the deal approved. Given the recent court decisions to block our proposed merger with Kroger, we've made the difficult decision to terminate the merger agreement. Albertsons is seeking billions of dollars in damages, along with a $600 million termination fee. Kroger called the claims baseless and said they will defend themselves against it in court. The Albertsons operates around 2,300 stores and has alluded to the possibility of store closures and layoff if the deal was blocked. However, the company sounded a positive note on Wednesday, touting recent investments in new technology. So this whole thing has become derailed because, again, of the politics of the matter. The U.S. The deal became a symbol of surging grocery prices and faced some regulatory opposition. Of course, with inflation going on, we all know food prices since 2020 have skyrocketed. And while they're slowing down a bit, the grocery bills still remain high. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission sued along with attorney generals from 8 states and the District of Columbia. Washington State sued on its own to block the deal. In both cases, judges ruled on Tuesday the deal would unlawfully decrease competition. The Kroger had defended the proposed combination, saying it would bring down prices at Albertson stores where the prices are 10 to 12% higher than their own. The merged company would fund price cuts through cost savings it expected from a larger operation and a larger customer base to drive revenues for Kroger's data consulting business. So had the deal proceeded, they would have owned approximately 5,000 stores across the U.S. and the companies that they were going to sell 579 stores, particularly in U.S. Western states where Krogerson and Albertson stores were near each other, and that would preserve the competition. But it wasn't to be. It wasn't to be. They decided that they couldn't do it. But interestingly enough, I think you can see the political fingerprints all over this stuff. The FTC applauded the position, calling it a win for union employee. This is the Federal Trade Commission. The FTC, along with our state partner, scored a major victory for the American people, successfully blocking Kroger's acquisition of Albertsons. This is also a victory for thousands of hardworking union employees, protecting their hard-earned paychecks by ensuring Kroger and Albertson continue to compete for workers through higher wages, better benefits, and improved working conditions. So, I mean, that apparently was the main reason that they decided to oppose the merger, because the unions opposed it. And so they were like, nope, that's Well, so it's a dead deal now. It wasn't a dead deal half hour ago when I started this diatribe, but it's a dead deal now. I was going to get into the fact that I feel like it would have been good for some place like like Homer. Quite honestly, I would love to have seen Fred Meyer down here in Homer. Like I said, the Safeway here, while it's a nice Safeway as far as the facility and everything else, Terry was down here for a month before I got here, and she was constantly showing me pictures of nothing on the shelf, empty racks, prices that were 20-30% higher than what we were paying in Wasilla and everything else. And I for one would have loved to see a little bit more of a competitive edge on those kind of things. And it's a little frustrating to see. I mean, I know we're down here at the end of the chain in Homer, but it just doesn't seem to make sense. Now, there's been some commentary from the local safe. I mean, this is all over. If you follow any of the Facebook groups in Homer, which I have followed for years, you'll see that people have been complaining about this for quite a while. But the commentary from the local Safeway is that it was a management issue and that they've now bringing in new management, and they're doing so. Maybe they'll change it. Maybe I don't know. I haven't been here long enough to really know, but maybe they'll change it. But I, for one, would have been okay with a Fred Meyer Safeway Kroger Albertson merger. But that looks like that is not going to happen now. And it seems like about half the people in the chat room are like, they were against the merger as well. I mean, again, because maybe they felt like it was a competitive edge. Although Anthony just said, I'm going to be real here. Fred Meyers could merge with Al Qaeda, and I might morally and ethically compromise if a gallon of milk drops below $3. I mean, if it produces lower prices, I'm all for it. Who you going to merge with? You tell me. We'll make it happen. I think it would have been an interesting thing. But I think what really bothered me about the whole thing more than anything else, because like I said at the beginning, I was kind of ambivalent. About the whole thing. But the fact that Lena Khan, who is the head of the FTC, and everybody else got involved in this, and in a very political way. Like I said, that comment on their victory lap speech when they said that they were all about a victory for thousands of hardworking union employees. Again, it just shows where the pressure was coming from. The pressure was coming from the unions who didn't want this deal to go through. And that's anytime it gets political like that, I think it's a real problem. But again, and this doesn't mean there are people who are doing things differently. I mean, I mentioned Three Bears here just a few minutes ago, but they are expanding hugely. Is that a word? Hugely. They've got a store going up in North Pole. They're opening a brand new store in North Pole. They just opened another store down in northern Soldotna. I saw that. They're expanding stores in the Wasilla area. They're going crazy. I mean, they are really doing a big expansion. And it's an interesting thing. Somebody just mentioned, Elena just said, we had the same manager that Seward had that ran both stores into the ground. Oh, so apparently this was a known problem. You got to have good management. And you got to have good things to make it happen. But especially when you're in a small town, and you don't have any, you got to make it right here. So anyway, I don't know. It seems like it just seems like that most people, have been kind of ambivalent to the merger. Some people are primarily for it, and some people are primarily against it. I was kind of ambivalent. Like I said, I kind of got to be more in favor of it once I saw the FTC got involved in that political way. I'm tired of that. It's not your peanut butter and my chocolate. Get your politics out of everything else that I'm doing. That's what I want to do. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but that's the next answer. All right, let's talk a little bit here. How much time we got? Oh, we don't have enough time here to do this. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to jump back into this new development. NSTAR has now signed a supply contract with Fury Petroleum, Fury operating Alaska, and they're saying that this could push off the gas problem. But does it really push it off? Because I have this feeling that it's just kind of moving the ball in the direction that they want. What do I mean by that? Well, we'll talk about that here more in just a moment. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We will continue with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Dukes Show.
Okay. Let me get caught up here. Milk prices keep going up along with everything else. And if you watch the markets, farmers and dairies get no more for their product than they did 40 years ago. Let's see. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Jeannie says the settlement between Albertsons and Kroger will cause the merger. I don't know. Will happen. Anyone else see what happened to the Bare Naked Barbecue in Palmer? The Valley Hotel and Vagabond probably signed their death certificate. I haven't even seen it, Jerica. You have to tell me what's going on with that. Let's see. Elena says, that manager's uncle is one of the, I think she's talking about the manager of the Safeway here in Homer, is one of the main district's manager of Safeway for the state of Alaska. I'm not sure if he's still around in his job, but the store manager has been moved. I did see that the store manager had been moved on. Miguel says, in my opinion, the merger should not have happened due to the fact that Fairbanks Fred Meyer's is more economical to shop at than Safeway, which is a bit more expensive. But my family and I are also blessed enough to be able to shop at the commissary. Yeah, I mean, I haven't shopped much at Safeway in years because it was always more economical to shop at Fred Meyer. I only went to Safeway for very specific things that Fred Meyer may not carry. I've been shopping at Fred Meyer for years just because of that, because that was the same problem that we had, again, when I was in Fairbanks, was that Fred Meyer's was always more economical. So, okay. Why is the K-12 government education system the only allowed monopoly? The feds cannot allow food stores to combine, yet our K-12s are allowed to feed our children's mind with their money. Yeah, there's going to be a Miguel says there will be a Three Bears up here in North Pole shop. Yep, they're building a Three Bears in North Pole. That's exactly what the plan is. Willie says he doesn't care because it doesn't matter for rural Alaska and their grocery shelves, but the Anchorage port tariffs do matter for them. That's true. Frank says, yeah, Cole's Market is growing here in Homer. Cole's Market is one of the local folks down here as well. Frank says, isn't it easy to say the merger of two companies will reduce competition? Sounds like a true statement when most companies merge. Well, I mean, it is, except for that there are multiple players in the market. And with Walmart being in the dominant leader position by almost a 2-to-1 margin, if the number two wants to be more competitive, then they need to, get bigger. That was the point there. I mean, in abstract, sure. If you merge two companies, will it reduce competition? Well, if there's only two companies, then yes. If there's 10 companies, maybe. Or will it make them more competitive against the larger fish in the sea? Yeah. All right. $10. Oof. Chris said, I still pay $10 for a half gallon of milk. Not even for a gallon, for a half gallon of milk in Soldovia. Ooh. Cindy said, I tend to drive to Kenai to shop at Safeway because the store is cleaner and better stocked than Safeway and Fred Meyer and Soldotna. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're planning on making a trip to Soldotna to go to the grocery store up there if we can't get what we need down here. Bigly, hugely. All right. The new bigger Three Bears in Toke is really nice. Yeah. And I bet, says Brian, that Three Bears has a no compete agreement with Costco as Costco brands dominate the shelves. I mean, that's one of their secret weapons, is that they go down and they buy a bunch of Costco stuff and they put it on their shelves and then they mark it up. I mean, that's for people. It's kind of for convenience more than anything else. Three Bears being built in Delta Junction as well. Yeah. All right. welcome. Yeah, welcome to it. There's a lot of people, Elena, that says that do their main grocery shopping in Sold Out and Kenai. Yeah, I mean, I understand why. I understand why. Pricing and availability, those are both an issue down here. All right. Let's jump into it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right. Welcome back to the program. It's another beautiful day here in paradise. We are getting things ready, and we are jumping into it here. Let me remove this comment. We're just talking now about this new contract between NSTAR and Fury. Now, as I read through this, I'm like, okay, maybe they're not sitting on their hands. They're going to try and, maybe they're going to try and fix this problem and take the bull by the horns, like Brad had talked about yesterday. It says NSTAR Natural Gas, according to the ADN and Alex DeMarman, has signed a supply contract with a Cook Inlet producer that could provide some breathing room as South Central Alaska utilities face a critical shortage of local gas. John Sims, the president of NSTAR, told the Alaska House Resources Committee on Monday that the 5-year gas supply contract with Fury Operating Alaska is set to begin in 2026. As the contract enters its second year, it's expected to provide significantly more gas than Fury currently sells NSTAR. The gas from Fury would be supplemental to NSTAR's overall gas supply and could push off the timelines for a potential gas shortfall, which they say is coming as soon as 2027. And so this second year would be 2027 will be the second year of this contract. He said explorers in Cook Inlet have only about a 9% success in drilling exploration wells that yield commercial discoveries over the last 15 years. Mark Slaughter, who was with Fury, said in an interview on Monday that some additional drilling in the kitchen lights unit needs to be conducted to provide the full volume of gas for each year of the contract. That translates to, we think we're going to find something, and we're signing the contract on the hope that we find something. I mean, this is not proven reserves, right? This is the thing is that we're going to drill some more, and we're going to hope that we can do it. A well drilled in October in the inlet would provide part of the gas, and they would go forward. The contract would provide an estimated 3 billion cubic feet in 2026. That's less than 10% of NSTAR's annual gas demand, but it would jump to over 3 times that in 2027, 9.5 billion cubic feet annually for 3 years. And that would be about 25% of NSTAR's demand. The contract would fall to about 7 billion cubic feet in 2030. So, I mean, I'm reading this and I'm going, well, okay. I mean, they're betting on the if come, right? They're betting on the potential for new discoveries, in which I like the confidence. It's all good. But then I get to the next part of the article and I'm like, what? Another important step was a preliminary determination by the Alaska Department of Natural Resources last week calling for approval of Fury's request to reduce state royalties on the company's gas production. Oh my goodness. All right. So this is the hook, right? The bait is, we'll provide you with gas and we'll put it off and we'll do it. I mean, we don't have the wells drilled right now, but we know we're going to find 3 times the gas that we're promising in year 1. We know that by year 2, we can give you 3 times the gas we can give you in year 1. Because we got some more drilling to do, which again seems super optimistic But then the other shoe dropped, and that was the request to reduce state royalties. If the agency approves the reduction in the coming weeks, the state's royalty on gas produced from the unit will fall to 3% from 12%. So it's a 75% drop for 7 leases in the unit. The lower rate would remain in place until the kitchen lights units reaches $712 million in gross revenues after a period that would start retroactively on September the 1st. This is from the Department of Natural Resources. Reducing the state royalty, says the ADN, will allow drilling that prolongs the life of the field and provides more financial benefit to the state. The unit, created in 2007, only has 3 producing wells. Each is at a risk of no longer producing as a result of declining reservoir pressure. So they only have 3 wells right now. And they're not producing very well because they're at pressure. But we're going to sign a contract because they're going to drill some more. I mean, this has the feel of a lot of theater, right? I mean, does it to you? We're going to sign a contract that's going to start in 2026. They only have 3 producing wells. I guess, I don't know if that includes the new one that they just drilled in October that they were just talking about. But they only have 3 producing wells in the kitchen lights unit. Each is at risk of no longer producing as a result of declining reservoir pressure. So you're signing a contract that says you're going to produce 3 billion cubic feet a year for year 1, and then 3 times that in year 2. There seems to be a lot of wishful thinking going on here in this. The royalty reduction could extend the life of the field by at least 10 and a half years, according to a scenario modeled by the state. Fury has estimated that without the royalty relief, the unit could begin ceasing operations in June, when operating costs could exceed revenues. A longer-lasting unit would provide the state total revenue of at least $37 million, more than the $2.7 million expected if nothing changes. It's a lot of again, betting on the if come. I mean, the preliminary determination says maintaining a stable Cook Inlet supply is in the state of Alaska's best interest. DNR has a mandate to assure local gas can continue to be produced. By granting royalty relief, it will make the kitchen lights unit more economic to maintain production, develop, and increase local gas production. Now, this is not, I mean, even with all this theater and pie in the sky and everything else, this is not the solution. This is not the solution you were looking for. NSTAR spokeswoman Lindsay Hobson said yesterday that a gas shortfall is a possibility as early as next winter, and that concern has prompted NSTAR and other utilities to pursue a plan to import natural gas. She said, while the Fury contract is great news for right now, we can't pump the brakes on any future development. We have to continue to plan and be prepared. Well, yeah, because the Fury contract sounds like it's a paper tiger. So, I mean, again, I don't know. I'm not an oil and gas guy, but just in reading between the lines in the news article, it sounds to me like, wow, you guys are betting on a lot of potential ifs and whens kind of going on. So they said they need to continue to move forward with this idea, potential for importation of natural gas. Future drilling would also be needed to help provide all the gas for the new contract, according to Fury. Fury hopes to drill 3 wells next year if it can use Hillcorp's jackup rig like it did in October. Didn't they just say that only 9% of the explorers in Cook Inlet have only had a 9% success in drilling? That means you'd have to drill 10 holes to get one that worked with a 9% success, right? You'd have to drill more than 10 to get it. But you know what I mean? You've only got a 9% success rate. You'd have to drill 10 holes. They're planning on drilling 3 wells next year. Overall, the price for gas for NSTAR ratepayers is going to rise, but they say by a fractional amount. since NSTAR gets most of its gas elsewhere, primarily from Hillcorp. NSTAR's current gas cost adjustment, that's the largest portion of the bill, is called the gas cost adjustment, is the amount that ratepayers pay for gas. It's the largest portion of the bill, and that's the part that's approved by the RCA. NSTAR's current gas cost adjustment for overall gas supply is $9.07 for every 1,000 cubic feet. Fury's price for gas would be $13.69 without royalty relief. If they do get the royalty relief, $12.30 per 1,000 cubic feet. So it's still a 30% increase. Still a 30% increase over it with the royalty relief. It's going to be a 30% increase over your current gas bill. Ooh, man, somebody better step up and do something on this. Somebody, I mean, and again, as you know, as much as I like to see more exploration, more drilling, and all this other kind of stuff, this seems more like, and again, I'm not an oil and gas guy as far as I don't have the backing that I probably should, but just in reading the article and reading between the lines, this seems more like a PR thing than anything else. We just wanted to tell you that we're doing something. We signed a contract, but do they have the gas in that? Well, we don't know. That just doesn't seem as reassuring as it probably should, right? That's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at right now on this. Something's going to have to happen. I don't know exactly what, but something is going to have to happen. They're going to have to either get up off their rusty dusties and make a decision to import and get that on the line, or something else. I mean, who else is a player? You got Fury, you got, is Hex still in there, I guess, and you got Hillcorp. Are you going to offer royalty relief to all of them to get it jacked up? I don't know. But I mean, again, even with royalty relief, the gas cost adjustment still going up 30%. That's a problem. Again, you want to know why people leave Alaska? Could it have to do with the cost of living? Could it have to do with all? Yeah, it could be with a lot of it. Yeah. All right, we got to go. We're going to continue the Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Hour 2 is dead ahead. Hoping to hear from Mike Shower. We'll be back with more in just a minute. Okay. All right. I'm just going through here, see what you guys have been talking about. I suppose I should, connect everything, right? Hey, something just happened. Something just happened. There we go. All right. He's ready. He's ready, he says. That's some good news right there. That's some good news. Let's get it going on. Nope. That didn't work. Come on. That's irritating. All right, let's try it again. Here we go. All right. Can you hear me now?
I can. It rang and I picked it up and it hung up right away.
Yeah, because it wasn't working. It wasn't working. Sometimes these technologies, man, sometimes the technologies are not all they're cracked up to be. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Could you imagine trying to do this on the covered wagon days? We wouldn't get very far.
Yeah, no, definitely. Wait, can you hear me now? Can you hear?
Just gather around the campfire. I'll
Yeah.
tell you a story.
I'll tell you a story about a man named Jed.
That's right.
All right. Let me. I'm going to put you on hold for just a second, Mike. I got to get kind of caught up in the chat room before we get started for hour 2 here. Hold on here. Let me see. Melody says, in fact, Three Bears in Toke now owns a store, a motel, a gas station, and an outpost, all new within the last few years. It seems in Toke. Yeah, I mean that they've been going. I mean they're expanding like crazy. I'm sorry, I'm going through here. I'm 15 minutes behind on the comments here, so let me just see if I get through here. I get claustrophobic in cars. What does he say? And I didn't need to get on the Parks Highway to get to cars. Sometimes cars is my go-to, but I get claustrophobia in cars. Yeah, no, I mean, I like I said, I would go there for very specific things. GR Hill says for the items he buys, he finds Safeway to be less expensive. Yeah, that's true. There are things that are that way. They probably can provide 3 times the volume if they're capping wells, like has been reported on this program. Yeah, because I mean, I had received some information that I couldn't verify, but that they had capped some. I don't know what's going on in there, but again, it seems very optimistic that they would be able to provide 3 times the gas on year 2 when they only have 3 wells and the wells are in decline. Like I said, it seems like it's more of a PR thing than anything else. Theater. Yeah, it's a shell game. Plus, we're doomed every morning. Get rid of the Jones Act. I mean, it would be more than just getting rid of the Jones Act, but that could be a part of it. I mean, we could ship our own gas from the North Slope down. We'd have to, again, do some infrastructure for the port to put a key up there and, all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Brian, oh man, there's too soon. Sure, we can produce barley in the interior and make a profit, but we need a little help from the state. Ow, too soon. 9% isn't a good success rate for a mature gas province. On a positive note, the higher price may make the importation of LNG more attractive. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the most attractive thing right now. That's the problem. All right. Doom and gloom. It's not doom and gloom, Harold. I just want to do better. That's all I want to do is do better. Okay. All right, here we go. I think we're all caught up now. I think we're all caught up with most of the comments. There we go. It's all good. All right, let's get things kind of squared away for Mr. Shower. He's going to be talking, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit here. Maybe we'll get his opinion on the Kroger and Albertson merger. I mean, it's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be a difficult. Now that the merger is broken down and they've broken off the deal and now they're suing each other. Probably going to be difficult to see that happen. What does that mean for us? I don't know. I sure would like to see a little better pricing on the groceries, but again, we're at the end of the road. So what are you going to do? All right, let's get going here. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're going to pick things up here and get with it. Mike Shower is our guest. Like and share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the YouTube, Rumble, Facebook stuff. Invite other people in. Let's get to it. Here we go. Hour 2 is right now.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska. This, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. How are you? Hour 2 of the big hump day edition of the show. And it is Wednesday, so let's get right to it, shall we? And get started with our guest for Wednesday, the Senate Republican caucus leader. It is State Senator Mike Shower, who joins us this morning to talk about, well, pretty much anything and everything. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am fine. Isn't that what we do pretty much every program?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talk.
Just
kind of like talk about whatever we want to talk about. I don't know if you were listening at all in the last segment there, but maybe we could start off with this. South Central gas situation, because this is a tough one, man. They've been talking about it for going on a year now. And there's been almost no movement. There were 2 years, just under 2 years away from a crunch on natural gas for energy production and heating in the South Central area. There's been a lot of talk about importation of gas and things like that. And now we get this article which talks about this new contract. But as I broke down the article in the last segment, and as I read through it, it doesn't sound that great. It doesn't sound like it's necessarily that much good news. There's a lot of if and when in it, and that even if it does come about, we're still seeing a 30% increase in overall cost. The current gas adjustment cost will go up by almost 30% with royalty relief. So what's your take on this? Did you read through this? Do you see this? What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, Michael, we've been talking about this for a while on the program. It's been percolating through the governmental structure for some time now, conversations with some of the companies. I mean, this is not a surprise to anybody that has been paying attention. So the question becomes, there's a few things when you baseline it. I mean, we can start off talking, for example, AGDC and go, well, there is another government-run project. The former governor's was going to be the feather in the cap. You may remember I was kind of part and parcel of that with a big loan that a big country was going to give us that's not friendly to our interest in the United States.
Right.
I was kind of part of killing that because not against a gas line, but against taking a $43 billion loan from a nation hostility. Probably not a good idea, but there has been a lack of general, I don't know what's the right word I'm looking. I won't say work per se, but a lack of vision on how we were going to get strategic partners, whether that be Department of Defense, which I know is interested in a gas line, into South Central for national security, for supplying potentially our allies like Japan and South Korea that need that hedge, including what we need inside our own use inside the state of Alaska for the nation. But we're $1 billion plus. $1 billion. Think about that, Michael. $1 billion plus right now of spending on AGDC. They haven't moved one shovel of dirt yet, not one shovelful. So how can you get to the point and go, well, yeah, government planning is great. Let's spend $1 billion. We've got executives making, I don't know, $400,000 a year plus. And what have we done so far in 10 years? That's not very encouraging. And then we're talking about state involvement, royalty relief, a host of other things with gas companies trying to look at drilling. And it's one of those things you kind of go back and you go, sometimes it's like, just get the government out of the way. And this is a little bit of a rabbit hole for a moment, but it's the same thing. I'm dealing with loggers that are trying to loggers and millers that, want to do millions of acres of forestry and, multiple meetings with DNR. And you've got the Matsu Borough here that's going, yeah, we'll give you $1,000 10-year lease, or 1,000-acre, leases, all this stuff. No big deal. Here, the price is right. And the state of Alaska, which owns way more than that, is going, oh yeah, I think we can get you a 120-acre lease for like twice the price. What? Millions of acres, and we need fire breaks and all of the work that happens for the millers then that turn around and make wood products we need and build houses, and they can't get it. And they can't get it because there's people in the state government that are anti-resource development, that are environmental extremists. Not all of them, but some of them in the right places are just blocking some of this. And I go, so look at the incompetency or whatever you want to call about AGDC. 10 years, $1 billion, nothing's happened. We're talking about gas leasing. Where have we been on this, Michael? What do you do to make this happen? As far as a government, do you do royalty relief? I guess maybe, I suppose, but maybe that's a little bit of a red herring. You were talking about it in the first hour. I listened. What do you do for the private companies? You look into, do we get involved in that? Do we direct how that goes? Because usually central planning and governmental intrusion into the free market system doesn't usually go that well. Look at the map of North Korea at night. Look at the failed Soviet Union. Look at Venezuela. How many examples do we need to go that, central planning and government involvement doesn't always go great? And I'll pivot right into what you said about the supermarkets merger. While I am generally reticent to see the government jump in, monopolies can be a problem if they get too big for the consumer, because then that they have total control. So maybe sometimes you want to see maybe somebody roll in and go, yeah, you're not going to do that, right? Because it becomes too big, too strong. But where do you draw that line? See, that's the thing we're talking about this morning. There's these lines to draw. Who's right? Who's wrong? Where do you draw the line? When is it too much? When is it too little? These are not easy answers.
Right. Well, with the competition issue, I look at this and you got, you essentially have three players in most of the major cities in Alaska. You have Safeway, you have Fred Meyer's, and you have Walmart. They're, almost all, and Target in some areas. Target's another one. But, if Fred Meyer's and Safeway combined, you'd still have competition with Walmart and Target. So I don't see this, again, like you said, where do you draw the line? I understand if there was just only two in town and then they merged, that would be an elimination of competition. But again, Walmart has twice the market share that Kroger does on this. So, is it really anti-competitive, or was it politicized? Was it more the political aspect of it?
Tell me what in our country today of anything is not politicized anymore. And while you're looking for that, I'll wait, and I'm going to go stand on my beachfront property in Arizona.
Right.
I think you're going to have a hard time finding that answer, my friend. And I know I pivoted way off the gas problem, for what's coming. I've talked to some of the energy company execs, and the reality is we're probably going to be importing. So be it. That's where we are. I mean, their number one goal is to make sure we have gas, and that is the highest priority. Right? Well, we can't get to a point where we can't have gas. So
I think the importation is. I think it's inevitable at this point, because you just can't. Even with royalty relief costs, and that's again assuming there's a lot of if baked in there. That's assuming they can drill more wells that will find more gas, and I'm sure that there's probably more gas in the Cook Inlet, but it's never good to have to look under pressure. You know what I mean? Like, you got to do it now. But even with royalty relief, if it's going to go up. And it's more affordable. And the first report said that it was more affordable to import the LNG. Then why are we dragging our feet? Is it simply an emotional issue because people are mad that they're not burning we're not using our own resources? I understand that, but you can't let emotion get in the way of the economics of the situation.
Right. And there's an old saying, ironic that I was talking about that other big country with that gas line project, but there is an old saying that is a proverb from there, and it's something to the effect of: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. All right. Well, the best time to start building a pipeline and working this stuff, Michael, was 5-10 years ago plus. The next best time is today, because we're behind. So while we are doing this, right, this is kind of the stratagem as you go through it. While we are working on making sure we have a current supply for the people that live here, we need to be doing the other things, whether that is also encouraging or helping or whatever we may do with those in the Cook Inlet and South Central, we need to be looking at partners like DOD and others, Japan, South Korea, others that want to help us build a pipeline to have a consistent supply from the North Slope. We need to be looking at those options like ASAP line that already have approval and working on how we may be able to build those and fund it appropriately in a worldwide market of natty that is, there's a glut. That's one of the reasons it's so cheap out there, because natural gas is just, there's a ton of it on the market. But that doesn't mean we don't keep moving down that path. What if the war breaks out, the big one, right? Here's the big one, the balloon goes up and all of a sudden that supply is shut down. The point is, there's many things to be thinking about, and building bridges to nowhere, I got it. Not a fan, right? But there are some things where you look at it and go strategically, nationally, even as a state, there are some things we have to do because everything else comes to a grinding halt, right? The merger of two grocery stores, not the end of the world. Running out of energy as a nation and a state, that's kind of a big one, right? I mean, that's, everything comes to a grinding halt. So there's a lot of things at play here. There's no easy answer, but I go back to, where do we cross that line? How much does the state get involved, or should it get involved? Are there other things we should be looking at that we should have already been doing that we're not, that we need to accelerate, like trying to develop a gas line for the different reasons that we do that? I mean, there's a lot of things at play here, and it's always like, I'll go back to this while we got a moment before we run into the break, but what's the number one priority? I love to ask people this, Michael, because what is it? Tell me, because for you, it's going to be one thing, right? For the other guy, it's somebody else. For everybody in the crowd, there's going to, whether it's, is it abortion? Is it environmental social governments? Is that the number one issue? Or is it election reform? No, wait. It's judicial reform. No, actually, no, it's the fiscal policy. No, it's actually the PFD. What is the number one issue? Is it the gas supply? Is it the merger of grocery stores? See, that's the problem we have here. But there's so many problems that we do face that we need to be working on certain things and maybe letting the market play out in others and not get involved. The problem is everybody has their number one issue. And there's only so many number one issues you can have because there's limited time and resources to handle all those number one issues.
Right.
And so sometimes you have to pick. That's the problem I find myself in. I got people yelling at me saying, no, this is the most important issue, Mike. This is what you need to do. And if you don't, well, you're just a terrible guy. I'm like, I can only handle about 10 number one issues, guys. I got news for you.
Look, I just look. Yeah,
where do we focus?
Yeah, no, look, I just look at this like, and again, back to the gas issue. And you're right. I mean, what is my number one issue? Fiscal stability for the state would be my number one issue, right? I mean, a long-term fiscal plan. Which,
well, you're just a terrible guy, because it should be election reform, Mike. No, wait, it should be no, it should be ESG. It should be, you, sir, do not understand what the number one issue is. You are a terrible person.
I understand that. but again, the problem with this gas thing is that, it's like it's inevitable. We know it has to happen. Now, if we want to look at it, the importation issue as a temporary stopgap, then great. We should do that. But we should at least get the problem solved now and then go back to, okay, how do we justify, if we can't do it economically, a gas line? If it can't be done through the financial economics of it, if we can't find private investment, is there another way to do it? I mean, should the federal government pony up for it for national defense? Should, whatever. I mean, that's great. But in the meanwhile, let's fix the immediate problem. And if the immediate problem is access to gas right now, and we know that importing LNG is the short-term solution, well, then let's just move on. Let's stop spinning our wheels on it. Let's stop trying to stop gap it with things like royalty relief and others, which has their own knock-on effects on things like the budget and everything else. 1 minute.
Isn't that how you handled your life, though? Like your house, so your roof's got a hole in it, and there's water pouring in with the rain and the snow and the cold and all that stuff. And you go, yeah, but downstairs, I really want to put that hot tub in. So let's go ahead and put the hot tub in. We'll get to that roof later. That's not how you operate. Like you're talking about here, you have to deal with things in a priority, right? The biggest priority is making sure we have a gas supply and be able to turn the lights on, because it's not just about heating your home, right? It's also the electricity to produce with it. Those things are kind of essential to modern living and everybody surviving. So you kind of got to prioritize like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? What's the most important thing? Food, water, shelter, those kind of things. You're not going to worry about the hot tub downstairs right now. So this is the kind of things where we have the pipe dreams. You want to build this and do that and all those things. Well, number one, we got to be survival, right? And survival comes down to the supply of energy, whether it's natural gas and it's clean water and it's having electricity and all those things. Those are kind of priorities. And then how do we guarantee those things long term when we start getting back to that strategy? When do you plant a tree? Now, right? You start working on those things. But you're not wrong. You got to look at your hierarchy of needs. Food coming up from the lower 48, making sure the ports are secure and working.
Yeah.
Those are important because without them, we can't eat. So there's priorities here of nice to haves and have to haves. Right now, what you're talking about are the have to haves. We must have those things.
Right.
And so we have to prioritize them, whatever it takes. And, if we're at that point, which we kind of are, it's whatever it takes. You don't have to like it, but we kind of have to do it. And what I'm hearing from talking to folks in the industry is that importing is pretty much it's the option right now until we do whatever else we end up deciding to do. But I don't think we have much of a choice, Michael. And the people are not going to be real happy if all of a sudden we start having brownouts and they can't turn the lights on. And the gas supply, not only does it go down and gets real skinny, but all of a sudden the price goes way up. Well, I got news for you. That's kind of where we are right now.
Right, so, exactly. Take care of the immediacy, and then we can work on the long-term plans, but at least get this off the table and stop about it. All right, we got to go. We're going to come back in a minute. Mike Shower's our guest, The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're back here. I mean, again, I just want, because I could just see already we spent the last session, although they didn't talk about it as much as I thought they would, but they basically spun their wheels the whole time on the gas issue for the Cook Inlet, because everybody was so desperate to try and figure out a way, how do we get Alaska? I mean, again, while I admire them, and then move on to the long-term solution. Just acknowledge that the importation is going to happen for a short period of time, and short period could be 5 years, 10 years. I mean, because you just don't build a pipeline overnight, but acknowledge that it's going to be the best short-term solution, and then we can continue to try and move Alaska gas, like you said. There's a glut of it. There's just our BRG, I guess, that Brad was quoting yesterday, said that a completely privatized pipeline without subsidies was 250% of market value delivered at the wellhead. That's what it ended up being. If it was a completely built pipeline, 250% of value. At an 80% subsidy, the state paid 80% of the subsidized, which is what the McKinsey study looked at. Then we're within 20% of what the market value. I mean, it would still be delivered down there, but it's 80%. That means we'd be on the hook for $8 of $10 billion for that pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, again, we're this next budget.
Said with sarcasm. I need the sarcasm.
No, I mean, yeah, you really need the sarcasm. You really needed the sarcasm font on that one. But I mean, that's wrong. Well, they will. But forget about forget about oil and gas. Forget about the subsidy at that point. What about all the other stuff that they want to talk about now? The increasing school. I haven't read this article because it just popped up, but there's a new opinion piece out from Loki Tobin talking about schools. And I haven't read the article, but the headline is
whatever it will, we'll be spending more money. I guarantee you.
Alaska schools are bending under the weight of an attack on public education.
She's full of hyperbole and rhetoric. So she's a far leftist. What do you want?
Yeah, no. We need $1,800 per student now for the BSA. That's what her number is.
She's a far left, radical, progressive, Marxist Democrat. That's what you're going to get from them, Michael. That's what the Senate's going to be. She's going to be in charge of education. Where do you think it's going to go? You got a Republican, so-called, that actually wants to have defined benefits back and is going to push it. And you got two, trade overs from the Republican Party helping the House be under control of Democrats. And now the Senate, of course, is also. So what do you think you're going to see from Democrats and the Republicans that have empowered the Democrats? You're going to see nothing but more spending, bigger government, more control. That's who they are. That's what you're going to get out of the Alaska legislature. God help us. The governor is going to have to swing that red pen of his. I hate to say that's how we're going to have to end up in the end of it. I'm going to try to work our way and not have that happen with some alternative paths. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Michael, you and I both know the likelihood of more spending and bigger government and more control is what's going to come out of the Alaska legislature. It's controlled by Democrats. That's who they are. That's what they believe in. That's their agenda. That's what we're going to be dealing with. So the last hope at the end of the day, when the 2-year session's up, is going to be hopefully the governor willing to go, not on my watch, and enough Republicans sticking together in both minorities to go, yep, we're going to uphold those overrides, boys and girls, because we're not going to let that happen. I hate to say, I'm predicting, not the whole 2 years. Hopefully we will do better than that. Maybe we'll have some negotiations and some reasonable compromise on some of these things. But I predict at the end there's going to be some of that, because you know what they're going to do. That's their ideology.
Yeah.
That's what's going to come out of the Alaska legislature, my friend. That's just, I can predict it. This is not, I can write the grade sheet before we ever do the ride. I know what's going to happen.
All right. We're going to continue on here. Mike Shower is our guest. Please like and share the show this morning. Like and follow the show page on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube and ring that little bell to get notifications. And do whatever you do on Rumble if you want to watch us on Rumble as well. Here we go. Common Sense Radio.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Enemy. Public enemy number one, which makes sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
All right. Welcome back to the program. We're continuing now with State Senator Mike Shower, who joins us this morning. He is the Senate caucus leader for the Republican Senate caucus leader, and he is coming on board to continue to talk with us about issues of the day. We were just talking in the break here about our discussion with Brad yesterday about the different proposals and how uneconomic an Alaska gas line would be for a private industry. That's why nobody's even ponied up the $50 million to complete the study for an equity stake. They'd get an equity stake if they invested $50 million for the study. They're like, nope, nobody wants to pick it up because it's going to be delivered at the wellhead. It would be 250% higher than market value, which, nobody wants to see right now. But even at the 80 percentile mark, it's still higher than market value, and we'd be on the hook. The state would be on the hook for $8 billion out of a $10 billion line, if you believe the numbers would stay where they are right now.
They'll move, but
again, how do we pay for it? And you said, well, we just take the PFD. That's easy, right? But the PFD is already in jeopardy. I mean, we're going into this budget year with a $1.5 billion deficit, low end. 1.5 billion means we're not going to see, and that's just assuming a standard growth curve on inflation. That doesn't have anything to do with the new spending that they're talking about. And they're talking about an additional $600 million, $660 million in education spending. They're talking about another $300 million if they decide to push through this defined benefits thing. It's going to be about $250-300 million a year. I mean, now we're in the $2.5 billion range. I mean, we're underwater.
Point is, Michael, yes, that's the point. That's what I and others have been screaming about for years. The trajectory that we are on with the state government of Alaska is we are going to take all of the permanent fund earnings very soon. Once we do that, we will exceed all revenue and income coming into the state via taxes and royalties, whatever it is, or earnings from the permanent fund. Then I look at everybody, stare them in the eyes. I've asked it on the floor in front of everybody in the legislature and go, what's next? Well, the only answer next is tax businesses that are going to go, we're done. This state is out of control. You never know what Alaska is going to do. Tax who? The citizens, our anemic, tiny little workforce that can barely get by in the private sector and hold on as it is. You're going to tax them. We're not big enough to survive this size and cost of this government. So those draconian cuts to government, Michael, you and I have been hoping for so long. The only other alternative you're going to have beyond that, really, at the end of the day, I mean, you could sales tax in the summertime, right? We have talked about that as a proposal as part of the fiscal policy working group. But eventually, the behemoth is going to get so big and so top heavy that the whole thing is going to topple over. And the only other choice you really have as an option at that point was to start eating the seed corn. You'd have to start eating the principle of the permanent fund, which of course is the spiral down the toilet bowl, right? Because then you take more money away. The next year there's less money, and on you go until there's nothing left. That also means you're getting less revenue, right, from it every year, less earnings, I should say. So the whole thing is, I look at this, I go, the trajectory they're on and the wild, out of control mindset, ideological of spending and growth is so vexing to me to watch this legislator and have people like you're describing, like Senator Tobin, and then the defined benefits from Senator Giesel and somebody else go, you're going to spend what? We're already well beyond our means, and you're going to increase spending. They want to increase the BSA, the numbers they're talking about. It's going to be the highest spending in the nation for some of the worst performance, with no backpack funding, with no parental consent, with no parental involvement, with no options for better learning outcomes and objectives for students, like, you know, being able to go to charter schools and other types of things where they do perform better and have more opportunities. None of that stuff. And no guarantee, by the way, the money goes to the teachers, which I've been talking about for a couple of years here. You know that. I've been very clear on. I'm not necessarily against increases in some spending if I know where it's going to go, i.e. to the teachers and the students, as opposed to the rapid increase in education or administration. I saw Elon Musk, of all people, put something out from Nationwide, and he showed, and I think it was I want to say maybe 2000. I don't know. It's a couple decades old. And it shows that increase at overall the entire nation, it was kind of an aggregate. Increase on education for students, like the actual students, was like 75% increase. And then for administrative, it was like 900% increase in the same time frame. And you'll wonder why you look at a place like Anchorage, where Senator Tobin's centered, right, with all of the leftists and the big unions down there, and they want to spend all this money. And so they're increasing the educational costs in Anchorage. They're going to increase taxation while they're building new buildings, while they're increasing the administration cost, and their student numbers is going down. Now, you tell me, that sounds like a government program to me. The need for your services is going down, but we're going to increase the cost of them while we do it.
Right, and
that makes a lot of sense.
And we know that in many cases, less than 50% of the BSA is actually making it into the classroom, so it is being consumed by overhead, by administration, by cost.
It ain't going to the teachers.
Infrastructure,
I can tell you
right?
that.
Yeah, you know, so all that kind of stuff. It's very frustrating. And we had, when Sarah Montalbano was doing the education stuff with us, she showed the same curve. You know, when you've got 2.5, in some cases 3, maybe even close to 4 administrators for every teacher, you may have got some bloat going on there, right? I mean, you need to address that. But no, it's just, the answer is always more. That's the answer that everybody looks for, is more. And great. How do we pay for it? That's the big question.
Well, I don't know. Let's pivot to some positive stuff, Mike, because I mean, I'm looking at the news this morning while I was listening to you guys talk, and you know, I see that, you know, good old boy Biden is giving another $10 billion of relief money to Iran. Oh, there's a real winner, with the supporters of Hezbollah and Hamas and the #1 world exporter of terrorists. You know, you got that ousted squad member that's talking about, here's a letter to all you white people, you know, and your white supremacy. I mean, this members of Congress, you know, it just, the garbage is out there. I mean, thank goodness Daniel Penny actually got off. That was good to see, that actually justice may have been served, right, for somebody that wasn't doing the wrong thing.
Right.
But Alvin Bragg, who needs to be prosecuted himself because he's got to be one of the biggest racist DAs in the entire country, and there's plenty of them, was going after him because he was white. Everybody knows that. Everybody acknowledges it. If it was a black man in white in reverse, he would have never been charged. Alvin Bragg would have never charged the guy. This is all about making hay and something for himself. I hope they turn around and charge him. They need to. So, but let's talk about the other parts, right? I mean, I'm looking at what's happening with Dodge. I wish we could get a Dodge up here in Alaska, right, like a Sunset Commission to look at some of these things. They go, you can't cut government programs. I'm like, no, actually you can. And maybe the best way to cut them is to rip the Band-Aid off and just start hitting them with a sledgehammer like Vivek and Elon want to do, and go just do it. Because everybody's going to scream bloody murder about how bad it is and terrible, and nobody's going to pick up the phone when you call the troopers. I might have heard that in the Senate floor a couple of years ago. But funny thing is, they still happen. And once you rip the Band-Aid off and kind of just make it happen, it's very painful initially. Funny thing is, we still function. And sometimes we function even better and more efficiently. And then, the private sector takes over certain things, and the capital free market works and does what it's supposed to do without the government interference. But I'm just watching this and I'm reading a lot of articles from different people and seeing it in the trends. And the trends are positive. In other words, the hope is out there, real hope and joy, not the false hope and joy from the other candidates, a couple months ago, but like actual people going, there's positive hope here. There's things that are coming in with the government where people going, ooh, this could be a really good thing. We're going to see efficiency out of this. The stock market is starting to go up. What does that mean? That means that businesses and investors are positive and they're bullish on the market, right? With things that are going to happen. You're seeing other countries come in, and Canada and Mexico, and go, oh, yeah, we're ready to negotiate. The BRICS country, India, was all part of the movement to demonetize away from the dollar. And all of a sudden, Trump came in talking to essentially their Fed, if you will. It's the equivalent type guy. And he's like,
right.
Trump's like, well, you want to play that game? 100% tariffs on Indian products in the U.S. He's like, no, we're not about demonetizing the dollar at all. Funny how that works when you have somebody that's bullish on America, that's going to have America first policies, that's willing to take a hard line, and all of a sudden they all want to reach out and shake the guy's hand. All of a sudden you have a whole bunch of people that are nervous, and if you're in a government position, go, oh my gosh, he's going to come out and Patel's going to release the tapes. I mean, how many people do you think, Mike, when the machine guy said, I'm laughing, that guy releases the tapes of like the Epstein list and the laptop and all that stuff. How many people's names in government service and these big corporations and the elite, how many names do you think are on some of those lists?
Right.
I'm guessing a lot.
Well,
because they're really nervous about those lists coming out. So there's just some interesting developments. It ain't all bad.
No. It's not all doom and gloom. I mean, and I know we talk a lot about the problems around here on the program, but I mean, we want to solve the problems. That's why we talk about them, and
of course.
You're right. The DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, if it can do half of what is promised,
even a fraction, that's right,
it would be amazing. I mean, the most amazing thing to me was the report that they put out last week that said that they found something like $600 billion in funding that the authorization from Congress had lapsed on. And in some cases, over 350 billion of it had been lapsed for more than 10 years. And yet it was just like a habit force. They were just paying it because they'd always paid it. And yet there was no authorization from Congress. How does that happen in something? I mean, it's because we're so big, right? I mean, we need to streamline and bring it down. I mean, if you could cut $600 billion out of the government budget to begin with, that would be a huge start. Start.
Michael, think about it. Who has the resources to actually go out and buy, for example, say a social media platform and potentially literally change the course of history? I mean, it is so big. It's beyond anybody's means to do that. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. That happened. Scratch that. Never mind. That one just took place with formerly Twitter, now called X. Who has the resources and the charter and now the authority to come in and possibly look at the size and scope of this monstrous federal government and actually be able to hire the legions of lawyers and accountants and others? That's just too big. It's never going to happen. Oh, wait a minute. We got a couple billionaires coming in, so scratch that. That's actually going to happen. My point is that you're not wrong when you say, like, you and I and your listeners, all of us here, right? We don't have the resources, the time, the ability, to do a fraction of what you're talking. Not even at the state level, much less probably even the local level, because the amount of lawyers and accountants and the resources you would need to have people that were willing and dedicated, and you could pay them to go after these things, right? But all of a sudden, I'm looking at this at the federal level. And you have people coming in, a president that's already been there for 4 years, and he's had 4 years to think about it and learn his lesson and who he needs to come in here. And he's bringing people in with him that are private sector people, that are billionaires, that have the resources, the time, the drive, the motivation to start looking at it and fixing it. We have never seen this in our lifetime. We may have never seen this in the history of the nation. Quite frankly, Michael, as weird as all the troubles we had, this is an exciting time to be alive. We've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic that they will be able to deliver on some of that stuff. Absolutely. Mike Shower is our guest. We got to continue here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more. One final segment dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. State Senator Mike Shower. Donna says in the chat room, I emailed Governor Dunleavy a couple of weeks ago and suggested an Alaska Doge with Ben Carpenter with Ben Carpenter at the helm. I suppose I should have talked to Ben first. No response from Governor. No response from Governor Dunleavy. But, yeah, I mean, maybe that's what we need. I mean, that's what some of the things that we're trying to be done, right? With the Sunset Commission and some of these other things.
That's right.
I mean, we're going to have to acknowledge, as we look at the 10-year forecast and the the fall revenue report supposed to be out tomorrow with a new 10-year forecast. But, the last 10-year forecast, in fact, the last couple too, has shown deficits every year for the next 10 years. We're going to have to start cutting back on something, or there's going to have to be some kind of taxation, one or the other. And if everybody is so no taxes, then everybody's ox is going to have to be gored. Everybody's going to have to feel the pain a little bit as we cut back on the government stuff.
Well, the first and most brutal tax has been the PFD, right? Because that is, while people, will never, that's just a terrible definition. It's not a tax. I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. Because, for 4 decades, for many people's lives in Alaska, that's been a part of the program. People have learned to count on it. It's just something that comes in, even though it's never really been all that much from a percentage of income wise. I mean, really, for most people, it's a smaller part, but it's something that's been there, a nice to have, not a have to have, but a nice to have. And it's been a great thing. But the first thing is we've been taking that. And so that does hurt people, especially as we know, bottom half, middle class, the poor, that's a bigger part. And it's, so we have been taking in that sense, if you want to call it, just because it's more government take, right? That, and what's coming next, Michael, the things like you're seeing in Anchorage, we're going to need a sales tax. They're trying to say they're going to offset property taxes. Oh, right. Yeah. You think the far left Marxist Anchorage Assembly is going to let a tax dollar slide through their fingers and give it in any kind of relief to the Anchorage taxpayers for property taxes that own homes? Because in their eyes, they're all wealthy. They're the wealthy if you own a home. So of course they're not going to let them, that's all going to be used up. We know that. So I look at this and I kind of go, well, okay, that's maybe the direction that we need to be going. Do you come in, like I said, and start swinging with a sledgehammer? Yeah, put Ben Carpenter, let him start swinging. That would be fantastic, because we go, where can we start cutting? It was part of the fiscal policy working group. You need to start getting rid of things, because if you don't, it just grows forever. And like you said, we're going to run into that brick wall. It's going to happen. We're not far from it. And if this legislature is successful in spending the kind of money that they seem to want to spend, it's almost like it's like they've accelerated the car. They put their foot down, they put a blinders over. They know that like I said, the bridge outlines in front of them, but they just accelerate. Like they just know it's going to happen, and somehow it's going to work out. And you and I both know it's not gonna, because we're how much in debt as a nation? 35 trillion.
Right.
At this point.
Right.
Funded liabilities, not talking unfunded. When you start talking Social Security and other welfare programs, it's way more than that. It's north of 100 trillion is a number I've seen consistently. So those are the kind of numbers that are staggering. Like you said, so big that people just can't even wrap their arms around it. So they just throw their hands up there and go, whatever, And it's fascinating, like I said, to go back and see this Doge program at the federal level, where they're coming in with a mandate, essentially, to go start swinging, guys. Do what you can.
Well,
cut where you can, get rid of employees, do something.
Yeah, the federal mandate too. I mean, there's going to be ramifications. Here's the other thing that, although we all applaud the Doge kind of ideal of slashing the government, we also realize that Alaska is such a dependency state. I mean, our federal spend matches and sometimes exceeds the state spend for the annual budget. And so if we do see a slashing through the Doge, that's going to amp up and amplify some of the other problems that we're having here, because we are not being fiscally responsible in this state either.
So let me ask you a question, Michael. Since it looks like we're going to not do it ourselves, isn't maybe that going to be the ultimate solution? Maybe that's where
Well,
it
it
goes.
might be, yeah, it might be the inevitable solution because and this is the same thing that I said on the national level. I mean, these guys and gals in Congress, they've got no interest in, but eventually arithmetic wins, and then you're faced. But wouldn't you rather, take palliative care before you have to get that terminal diagnosis? You know what I mean? Wouldn't you rather take? But again, if nothing else happens, it will come and get you eventually.
That's my point. And have we not demonstrated as a nation, as a state government, because we'll keep it specific to us here, but it applies to the federal level. Have we not demonstrated that we have no will or desire to actually rein in the growth of government and spending? And my answer, and it's a rhetorical question, you know that. The answer is no. We've demonstrated that we're going to spend ourselves into oblivion. So perhaps the best answer is just to let it accelerate until it does crash. Let them do. I mean, I'm being a little bit okay. So just because people can't see me rolling with my eyes, there's a little bit of sarcasm here. But maybe the answer is let them crash the thing, Michael. And the reason I say that, as I've said before, on the federal level, maybe we crash the boat sooner, the ship into the Titanic into the iceberg, before we have nothing left.
Yeah.
Because if we get so anemic and so far down that path and then crash, we got nothing left to recover with.
That is true.
That's more dangerous.
That is true. Sometimes it's better sooner rather than later. All right. We'll continue here. We're going to give Mike, not that he hasn't had his head this whole time, but we're going to let him talk about whatever he wants to talk about here in the next segment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
Yep, it's me and the show. It's also State Senator Mike Shower, who is the Senate Republican caucus leader in the Senate. Mike, as I said earlier, it's not like you haven't kind of been able to go wherever you wanted, but what do you want to talk about in this final segment? You want to talk about anything that's coming up in this session, your plans, or what's your thoughts here in this final segment here of the show today?
I mean, it's hard to tell about the session yet because we haven't seen all the bills pre-filed. I mean, we can take really good guesses, right, based on Democrats controlling both bodies again, unfortunately. And the Senate's going to be even worse than it was because now the Republicans left in that coalition are outnumbered 2-1. So you can imagine where this is going to go. But it's just hard to predict that because, like I said, we can take a lot of very educated guesses, but until we see the pre-files and kind of see how things are going to play out and how the House is going to finally solidify, is it going to be 19-21 or any last minute changes? So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because we're going to be talking about it over the next 2 years anyways. But I kind of went back to that kind of, hope and change thing. I'm like, I am encouraged. While I know that I am sure that Trump and his administration are going to be very pro-energy, fracking. They're going to want to get back to energy dominance and thus becoming a net exporter of at least refined oil products like we were under his watch the first time. I would imagine that that's going to actually hurt us because obviously the price of oil is going to drop and that's not going to be a positive for Alaska. So while I think we're going to start seeing the tide in the nation rise up as far as economically and kind of getting back on our feet, I think it's actually going to hurt Alaska. So that's something we need to consider. I don't think it's going to be necessarily positive, but there are other things. Like I said, I know that DOD and look, having Congressman Begich, and does that have a nice ring to it? We just had a event with Nick about a week ago. I'm like, Congressman, go Nick, go get him, brother. But I mean, having Congressman Begich and Senator Sullivan, at least, I don't really have much faith in Murkowski. But I know they're key on and understand because I've had many conversations with both of them on the Department of Defense's and national security and where we fit in geopolitically, like countering Russia and China with gas to our allies and things like that, and Arctic exploration and development. So I'm encouraged because I think they really understand that. And that leads into things like A2A, which the approval that Trump gave right before he was out of office for the rail line coming through Canada so we would have another connection, not only for economics, but for military security purposes, for moving like oil products back and forth, all those things.
What is A2A, just so folks know what A2?
That's the railway. That's the rail line that would connect us to the lower 48. So it'd go up through the current rail line up through Tok, and it would almost kind of, if you will, be like the Alaska highway. helps, but it would connect us because right now we're not connected via rail only road. So it would give us a full rail connection all the way through Canada to the lower 48. And that was approved with Trump through the border. There's a thing he had to sign, which he did right before he was out in 2020. So if that goes through and you add then DOD with our new congressmen, others that know it's important, are going to push DOD to go help us be a partner, federal government. Maybe the DOD can come with funding, maybe that plus some state and other things. We can get to the point of overcoming the momentum on the cost side, because this is back to what I said. This is one of those things, Michael, where I don't believe in building bridges of nowhere. And I understand that the gas line doesn't work out for the economics of it right now. But sometimes when I look beyond that and not just get in our little bubble here, our little echo chamber in Alaska of what we want to do, sometimes we need to look beyond that. And there are things we do from a military or national security perspective that don't necessarily pencil out in the private sector, right? That's why the military or DOD does it, for hundreds of billions of dollars, that a private company goes, no, we can't afford that. We got to make money. Well, Department of Defense and the federal government isn't into making money. They just take it, right? But there are some things I look strategically and go, maybe that's an answer for us to get involved, to get the federal government to help us, DOD and others that know this matters from a national security perspective. And we start working on funding it that way with our partners to bring it in and go, yeah, it ain't going to pencil out right now, guys, but maybe in 5 years or 10 years or 20, it does, when the world turns upside down again, or we start shutting off energy supplies like Russia did with Gazprom into Europe with the war in Ukraine. So there are some things we need to be looking outside of. And I think we've got some really good federal delegation now to start working on that we didn't have before. So I'm hopeful on some of those things. Well, I think the price of oil is not going to be our best friend for Alaska. Developing things down the road that are going to be important to us, we got to start thinking long term. This is how a place like China, they don't play the 4-year game like we do. They play the 100-year game. Where do we need to be in 25, 50, 100 years from now to be dominant in all these sectors? Well, we used to do that. We don't do that much. We need to be thinking that way and go, yeah, I get it. The gas line is not something that pencils out right now, but from a national security, national energy security perspective, and for our allies, it may, and it probably will be very important. So we need to figure out how to do it. We got to figure out our South Central gas supply, right? That's an issue for us right now. How are we going to do it? We need to figure out how to start getting Ambler Road open and MPRA and ANWR, because all of those things matter. And so I see this rising tide, if you will, nationally, economically, trying to come back to produce in the U.S. as positive for us long term, but don't think that all of a sudden in the next legislative session, Alaska is just going to bounce back and be great. These are what I'm talking about, Michael.
Yeah, because
it's painful now, but better later.
Well, because we're facing a lot of, like you said, I mean, if we expand the energy development in the country, it's bad for Alaska because the oil price drops. If we use the Doge to cut down on the size and scope of government, federal subsidies into Alaska will drop. And that in turn will worsen the situation here for us. But again, it has to happen if you want everything to remain. I mean, if you want to continue, you have to do it sustainably. And what we have right now is just not sustainable. So will it be painful? Absolutely. I mean, will we see people leave probably because of it? Absolutely. Will the state have to make some changes? Absolutely. But it's one of those things where, do you get sick from the cure or do you die from the disease? And that's kind of where we're at on this.
I'm kind of glad you said that, because I was getting ready to use the health analogy. I said, so you're overweight, right? Not you. I'm just to be clear, I didn't say Michael. I just said somebody's overweight and you want to lose weight, right? It's not fun. It's painful. But the question is, do you want to go through the pain now of fixing the problem so that you live and you are going to have a nice, healthy life, productive life for the rest of your life? Or do you just keep eating those Twinkies and bury yourself into the ground right now faster? And that's kind of where we're at right now. We need to be thinking strategically long term and go, some of this is going to be painful. And it's not going to be exactly how we want to play out, but that's the reality of the cards we've been dealt. We need to start thinking long term and understanding there's going to be some pain to get there. You're going to have to figure out how to lose that weight, start eating right, and be healthier again, right? Because in 10 or 20 or 30 years down the road, that's going to be a benefit to your body, to your health, to your family. Well, that's where we are as a state, and that's where we are as a nation. We need to be thinking beyond it right now, because it's always self-gratification. It's always right now. That's our culture. We want it right now. Well, the unfortunate part of where we is, we're not going to get right now. And right now is going to be painful if we're going to get to a point where our kids are going to be healthy. So we better
Right.
start thinking about it.
All I remember
That's
is
reality.
all I see is a bunch of people going, "I'm here for a good time, not a long time." Right? I mean, it's like, no, we got to start thinking long term on this. We got to start thinking what is sustainable and what does the math say that we can do. And just like in this state, we've completely ignored it since the early 2000s, where, we had money put away, we were doing well, we had things going on. And instead of cutting, we expanded. Instead of living within our means and retaining those seed corns for a rainy day, we just ate them all up and spent them all. It's, Alaska government is morbidly obese at this point, to use your analogy, Mike, that Donna just threw out there. I mean, that's exactly where we're at in that analogy.
It really is, Michael. And people are going to scream bloody murder if we start talking reductions or getting rid of employees or agencies, because that's always something, the patient always screams, right, when you're cutting. But the reality is, if you don't, the patient dies. So do you take some of the pain of the surgery it takes to start removing some of the fat, some of the disease, and all the screaming and that comes with it? Or do you just do nothing and wait for it to die? And I think everybody listening to your program, we're all adults here. We're more worried about our kids and our grandkids, right, down the future of our country, because we've all been around for a while. And that's really what I think concerns and drives most of us, is that we need to do this now, as painful as it's going to be, because otherwise our children are going to curse us for what we have left them. This garbage of a $35 trillion deficit, a federal and state governments across the nation that are just about bankrupt. Or are bankrupt, in fact, and it just hasn't come home to roost yet. So
2 minutes.
We have to start thinking strategically. We have to start planting the trees today, because we didn't plant them 20 years ago. It's time for us to start living by that kind of methodology, if you will. So I don't have any great faith in the legislature this next 2 years that it's going to do anything great on that regards. I think it's going to go the opposite direction. I'm hoping the governor's going to come in with a really stiff spine and a big red pen ready to help back us up and go, guys, if you do stupid stuff, we're just going to stop all the work for nothing at the end of it. So I hope we do more positive, but it's going to be a challenge. But nationally, I think and that's going to be a plus down the road for us, but there's going to be some pain involved in the process.
And I think that's part of what got Trump elected, quite honestly, was people were going back to that idea of living within our means, the economy. It really was about the economic situation, and they were doing better under Trump than they were under Biden. And I think that was a huge part of it. I
think there's three. There was just very briefly the economics. There was the open border crisis that everybody was tired of. And then I think, and we can talk next week on this, but the woke culture, the ridiculousness of where it's going, people have woken up to that and they're just tired of it. And you add those things together, it was the perfect storm. That's what it was.
No, I agree. Well, it's going to be a tough time for Alaska moving forward, regardless, because we're going to have to learn to deal and adapt with all this stuff. It's going to be a tough year, but we'll get through it. Mike Shower, our guest. Thank you, Mike, for coming on board. As always, good to talk with you.
Indeed.
All right, folks, we're out of time for today. Tomorrow on the program, Justin Ruffridge will be joining us, and maybe somebody else. We'll see how that goes. That's coming up tomorrow, The Michael Duke Show. Yeah, I mean, Mike, it's, again, the bearer of bad news, but it's going to be a tough couple of years here. If the Doge does its job in any way, shape, or form, if the oil prices come down, we're going to see lots of those problems. I mean, that's the thing. Give me your final thoughts here.
No, I think, like I said, I don't want to be all gloom and doom, but I want to be realistic, and I want to prep people for the battlefield as it is, not the one we want. But I also want them to have hope that as a nation, and I hate to use some of these ridiculous terms, but, a rising tide floats all boats. But that's kind of where I'm looking at it. As a nation, I think we're going to be on the mend, and I think we're going to start rising and come back with a resurgence. And so ultimately, you'll get the trickle-down effects, if you want to call that, to Alaska, and we'll see positive developments. And you're going to have a very, very pro-resource development federal government. And I think you're going to see some changes in what allows us to start building, planting the trees today, of opening up more area for exploration for coal or rare earth elements or minerals or oil and gas. And I think we're going to see all those positives. And so it's not good. My point is, it's going to be painful to get there, but I think we're going to see long-term some really positive things in the directions we're moving. And so that I'm hopeful for all of that and for some kind of, if you will, some tearing down of the institutions in the sense of, just they're just these big, fat, overburdened, over-regulating, controlling government agencies. And you're seeing this kind of American mindset that's like, no, enough, we're done. We're putting people in, and we're excited that these X-Men are coming in, as Dr. Jordan Peterson calls them, that are going to have these superpowers to start tearing stuff apart and kind of rebuilding it and reshaping it. And if nothing, Michael, it's at least a sea change of American attitude. And to see a majority of the country, both by popular vote and by electoral college, go for the guy that's the anti, machine, if you will, that's the anti-government guy, that was encouraging. And it was a majority of Americans. And so I am very encouraged about where we are as a nation right now. And if we ever needed it in this very dark world, this is a heck of a time for it. So I'm far from discouraged. I am concerned about how Alaska is going to fare for this and how we find our path.
Right.
But as a nation, I'm I haven't been this encouraged in some time.
Yeah.
It's really is an exciting time to be alive, to watch this and see how it plays out. But yeah, Alaska, we got our work cut out for us. So we better put our heads down and we better start grinding, because it's going to be, there's going to be some challenges here, and we're just going to have to be tough like we are. We figure it out, start planting those trees today. And, eventually our kids will appreciate what we do, but there may be some austerity in Alaska's future coming up. So,
I fully expect it. I fully expect that that's what will happen. All right. Well, thanks so much, my friend. We will talk with you. We'll talk with you next week. Thanks for coming in.
You got it. You guys take care. We'll see you.
All right. Thank you, my friend. All right. We'll see you then, folks. Tomorrow again, Rep. Justin Ruffridge joins us. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Be kind, love one another, live well.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.